News feeds worldwide just replayed the same staggering footage. A convoy of armored SUVs grinding up to the Temple Mount, black-suited security fanning out, and the man most headlines still call the peacemaker striding straight through the eastern gate of Israel's brand-new sanctuary. Moments later, every live stream cut to a single frozen image. His likeness, cast in polished alloy, unveiled inside the Holy of Holies. Priests yelled in horror, worshippers scattered, and the global comment section boiled over. The Bible said it would happen this way. In Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, the prophet wrote that a coming ruler would put an end to sacrifice. And as chapter 11, verse 31 adds, would set up the abomination that causes desolation. Jesus echoed the warning in Matthew chapter 24, verses 15 and 16, telling believers to flee the moment they saw this abomination standing in the holy place. And in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, Paul added that the same figure would sit in God's temple, proclaiming that he himself is God. For 2,000 years, scholars have debated how close those verses might sit to the evening news. Tonight they sit side by side. Until yesterday, the Antichrist's resume looked dazzling. He brokered the ceasefire no one else could sign, opened the door for Israel's third temple, and watched his approval ratings soar. Now the mask is off. By planting his image where only the Ark once stood, he just crossed the brightest red line in Jewish memory. The shock isn't only religious, it's political and economic. The treaty that guaranteed Israel's safety is shredded, and the man who promised protection has declared himself the God to be worshipped, or else. Before yesterday's shock on the Temple Mount, the Antichrist stock in Israel could not have been higher. The region had been inching toward broader normalization for years. First, the 2020 Abraham Accords, then a 2025 wave of U.S. and EU-backed initiatives that talked openly about Saudi-Israeli ties and a fresh, comprehensive European security umbrella for Jerusalem. Investors dubbed it the peace dividend. Even after the 12-day Iran-Israel war this spring, analysts predicted deeper Arab-Israeli cooperation and a lighter defense budget for the Jewish state. Against that optimistic backdrop, the Antichrist, then hailed as a visionary European mediator, secured what Daniel chapter 9, verse 27 had foretold. A 7-year covenant with many. The deal promised missile defense integration with the EU, Arab recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, and, most significantly, freedom for Jews to restore full temple worship. The agreement matched Daniel's description precisely. Israel anticipated protection from all of their Arab enemies, and in turn redirected military research budgets toward biotech and green technology. Real-world groundwork made the religious clause believable. 5 red heifers had already arrived from Texas in 2022, inspected and approved for future purification rites, and Temple Institute blueprints were now on display at a new visitor center that opened earlier this year. Talk of a third temple, once relegated to the fringe, had become a mainstream tourism pitch. Israelis called the agreement Keshet, rainbow, a post-war sign of hope. Paul's warning in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3 suddenly reads like more than theology. When they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them. Until last night, that line felt academic. But then the very guarantor of the peace walked past the veil, halted the sacrifices he himself had authorized, and placed his image in the Holy of Holies. In one move, he nullified every promise and flipped the rainbow into a snare, proving Daniel's implication true. The covenant was never about peace. It was bait, designed to disarm Israel spiritually and militarily. What felt like the safest moment in modern Israeli history has now become the trigger for the worst. Temple talk in Israel has been edging from fringe to mainstream for years. 5 rabbi-approved red heifers landed at Ben Gurion in September 2022, welcomed by both Orthodox Jews and Christian tourists who saw them as the final puzzle piece for biblical purification rites. At the same time, the Temple Institute unveiled detailed blueprints and a scale model at its new visitors center, openly describing how a rebuilt sanctuary could sit alongside today's cityscape. Those real-world developments made the worship clause in the Antichrist peace deal feel plausible, even exciting. That excitement shattered yesterday afternoon. Security cameras show the convoy breaching the eastern gate, escorts clearing the inner courts, and the so-called peacemaker marching straight toward the veil. Priests pleaded. Microphones picked up the shofar-like wail of their protests. Within minutes, the daily sacrifice stopped, incense fires were doused, and technicians wheeled in a metallic statue, his own image, onto the foundation stone. The moment fulfilled what Daniel chapter 11, verse 31 calls the abomination that causes desolation, now standing where only the Shekinah once dwelled. The act mirrored the steps described in the transcript: the removal of sacred furniture, the halting of worship, and the demand for adoration in his place. Jesus warned in Matthew chapter 24, verses 15 and 16 that believers should flee the instant they saw this very thing. Paul wrote in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, that the lawless one would seat himself in God's temple, proclaiming that he is God. And Revelation chapter 13, verse 5, marks the timing precisely, 42 months into the tribulation. All three prophecies just collided, live and in real time. Yesterday's desecration did more than shut down temple worship. It flipped a global economic switch the Antichrist partner has been wiring for years. Revelation refers to that partner as the beast from the earth. But in plain terms, he is the false prophet, the economic czar who gives every human being a license to stay alive. Pieces of that license are already embedded in our headlines. The Bank of Israel's 2025 design paper for a digital shekel lays the technological rails for a cash-free economy within the country. Across the Mediterranean, Brussels is deploying its EU digital identity wallet, one QR-ready credential designed to unlock banking, healthcare, and cross-border travel for all 450 million Europeans. Retail giants are normalizing biometric payments. Amazon One, which began in U.S. Whole Foods locations, expanded to Spain this summer. And in Sweden, microchipped commuters already wave a hand instead of scanning a ticket. The false prophet won't start from scratch. He'll link these siloed systems, weld them together, and tie access to a single act. Worship the image now standing in the Holy of Holies. No bow, no buy. Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 and 17 makes it clear. He causes all to receive a mark, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. The transcript echoes this, warning that those who refuse the mark will ultimately die from starvation, because there won't be any way to participate in the economy of the world. It will be marketed as safety, one biometric pass, zero fraud, and instant universal basic income, but the fine print carries the most serious clause in human history. In Revelation chapter 14, verses 9 through 11, John warns that anyone who receives the mark will drink the wine of God's wrath and suffer eternal judgment. By tying worship to commerce, the false prophet merges spiritual allegiance with digital identity, building exactly the global control system John saw from exile on Patmos. Israel's temple may be the physical ground zero, but the circuitry is worldwide and already humming. Yesterday's statue lighting wasn't just idolatry, it was the on-switch for a marketplace with no exit, a system where survival itself becomes an act of blasphemy. The instant the Antichrist seized Jerusalem's sanctuary, regional fault lines snapped into motion. Iran, still smarting from the June missile exchange that saw hundreds of its rockets intercepted, yet several slam into Tel Aviv, called last night's statue installation an existential provocation. Hezbollah signaled full mobilization. Turkey denounced the coup from Friday prayer pulpits. Egypt rolled armored brigades across the Sinai for exercises. The war clouds mirror what the transcript had forecast. Israel's former protector now marches to wipe them off the earth, while rival armies surge in from every direction. The Apostle John described two major precursors. First, Revelation chapter 16, verse 12, speaks of the Euphrates drying up to prepare the way for a 200 million strong force from the east. That's no longer metaphor. Headlines already show the river at crisis lows. Lake levels behind Syria's Euphrates Dam have dropped 6 meters in just weeks, and Iraq's Duqin Reservoir has reached a 20-year low. Climate shifts and upstream dams are quite literally desilting prophecy's path in real time. Second, those armies must have a stage. Napoleon once called Israel's Jezreel Valley, ancient Megiddo, the perfect battlefield. Modern historians agree, counting more than 30 major campaigns fought there. Satellite images this morning captured mechanized columns parking in that very valley, their desert-tan hulls laid out like chess pieces across a wheat-green plain. Israel's own June war report confirmed how fast air dominance can disappear under mass missile fire, meaning the next round may be fought largely on the ground, and it will be brutal. Daniel chapter 11, verse 44 says the Antichrist will hear troubling news from the east and the north, and then set up his base between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. That geography matches Megiddo exactly, midway between Haifa's Mediterranean coastline and Mount Zion in Jerusalem. What appears to be a conventional regional war is, in truth, a prophetic magnet pulling every army toward the valley named in Revelation chapter 16, verse 16, Har Megiddo, Armageddon. The countdown has begun. The only unknown is how many news cycles remain before the skies split open and the world's armies realize they've not gathered to fight each other, but to face the returning king. Megiddo's valley is filling with armor, but prophecy says the battle ends almost before it starts. John writes that Christ strikes the nations, and the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet. That's Revelation chapter 19, verses 15 and 20. Paul says the lawless one is destroyed by the breath of his mouth. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8. One word from the king, and every weapon fails. Revelation chapter 19, verses 17 and 18, summons birds to feast on the fallen. More than 500 million migrate through Jezreel each year. Nature's cleanup crew on standby. Then comes the 1,000-year reign. Revelation chapter 20, verses 1 through 3 says Satan is chained. Isaiah pictures an age of righteousness. Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 24 names David as prince. Resurrected saints reign with Messiah. But even paradise ends with one last test. After the 1,000 years, Satan returns. Fire falls. The great white throne appears. Revelation chapter 20, verses 11 through 15, says those not found in the book of life are cast into the lake of fire. Then comes eternity. The New Jerusalem descends, every tear is wiped away, and one king rules forever. If these signs feel too precise to ignore, they are. Prophecy isn't just unfolding, it's accelerating. Rapture Revealed is here to help you watch with eyes wide open. Subscribe now to stay ahead of the headlines, grounded in Scripture and anchored in truth. Don't scroll past the signs. Watch, discern, and be ready. This is more than news. This is the countdown.